There are countless memorable lines all through this film for all the wrong reasons. It's hard to believe they were greenlit and made it to the final cut, but they make this mess of a story all the more endurable. Welcome back once more, movie fans, to the 10th London Film Festival 2022 review to discuss Harry Styles' My Policeman, based on the book of the same name. The film is set in two timelines. One in the late 1990s as the arrival of an invalid, elderly Patrick into Marion and Tom's life triggers the exploration of seismic events from 40 years prior in their lives, introducing the second timeline in the 1950s, as Tom and Patrick share a passionate relationship at a time when homosexuality was illegal. And I am just going to cut right to the chase. It always hurts to see a bad movie, but especially to see a bad movie at a film festival. As far as the direction is concerned, this film is competently made. The shots look nice, they are very well set up, you can clearly tell there was production value, and Stephen Price's score, one of my favorite composers out there, is serviceable. It certainly elevates somewhat the scenes in the film. There are also good performances, particularly by the elder actors. Rupert Everett, who doesn't have a ton to do because he's playing an invalid person, does a great job at emoting, and Emma Corrin carries the 50 sequence with grace and some nuance, at least what she is allowed to deliver with the script that we need to get into. Do you know how to make a movie about a throuple boring? I don't, but this movie nails it, completely removing the throuple element out of it entirely. And for reference, I haven't read the book, so I don't know if they dive into the throuple aspect of it, but there's a promising premise in here that the film just never explores whatsoever. And when you take out what is, in concept, the most interesting aspect of your narrative, it makes for one drag and drawn out, incredibly dull watch, lacking any energy or personality, charisma whatsoever. The prettiest aspects of this film is how great Brighton looks. And that has nothing to do with the story itself. It's just a location, and it's not really a character in the film. The biggest highlight for me was some of the lines that we'll get to, but also seeing a police box. I thought I was in an episode of Doctor Who for a second until Harry Styles came out, and I do not want this man to be the next Doctor. Tom constantly claims to be at conflict with his own heart, maybe thinking himself as bi, but he isn't. He never acts upon it. He says he's in love with Marion, but he isn't whatsoever. Every decision made by this character just emphasizes that he is gay. The only thing really stopping him is not his feelings or his heart, it's the legal ramifications of the 50s, which is understanding, but just makes this character incredibly frustrating. It's like having a drug addict friend who refuses to admit they are addicted to heroin, but every action they make, every decision, and every instinct on their part just proves how much of an addict they are. Tom's motivations are so muddled and ill-defined in what is in general an unnecessarily convoluted narrative. The entire film is essentially a recounting of Patrick's diary from the 50s as it's being read by an older Marion in the 90s, and it all revolves around Tom's secret hidden struggle that we don't get clear answers as to what it is up until the last 15 minutes of the film. The entire narrative lacks a clear protagonist. You don't really know whose story you're following, and it constantly shifts the focus to all of them, but it doesn't dive any deeper into these characters throughout the entire story. Most of it set back in the 50s, where all this exploration lacks any nuance or depth. This uninspired script gives way to immensely bland performances. As talented as some of these performers are, the characterizations are endlessly frustrating, painting each member of this trio in despicable light. Tom is unbelievably passive throughout the entire story. Patrick is continuously hurtful towards Marion, and Marion makes the better part of her entire life a lie, only to drop the consequences of her actions on Tom by the end of the film. So you're not really rooting for anyone, but the script also doesn't make them interesting or compelling to watch. Suffice it to say, My Policeman is a mess, but it is a wholly entertaining one. So much juicy, unintentionally hilarious dialogue, straight out of a soap opera, much like the love triangle plot the characters are supposedly involved in. Again, it's not really a triangle, it's a man being gay behind his wife's back and entirely cheating on her throughout her entire life. So many awkward moments that you can tell how much Harry Styles is trying, but he completely yells out all his freaking lines. There's no nuance, there's no struggle, there's really no inhabiting a character for this dude. I was rooting for him. I like him in Dunkirk. He didn't bother me in Eternals, but I think it's time to end the Harry Styles experiment. Also, no wonder Olivia Wilde only had him doing oral in Don't Worry Darling, because this dude is the heaviest fucking breather. And yes, since he is somewhat the protagonist at points, there are scenes where he is the lead. He has to carry significant moments in the story, and you're just trapped. You just have to go in with it, and you have no escape. And it is really, really funny. Again, unintentionally so. There are countless memorable lines all through this film for all the wrong reasons. It's hard to believe they were greenlit and made it to the final cut, but they make this mess of a story all the more endurable, and clearly the actors were having fun. They go out to Brighton, they go out to Venice at one point. It all looks great, but the story doesn't get any better for it, and I was eating it up. But before I dive into my final thoughts on My Policeman, let me know what you make of it in the comments below. Start the conversation on Harry Styles as an actor. What is your favorite performance of him? Are you excited for this one? How does it compare to the book? Anything and everything down there. And if you're enjoying my LFF coverage, if you're enjoying this outrageous review, or if you just love movies and TV, this is the place to be. So consider clicking that subscribe button and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. My Policeman is the equivalent of a balloon deflating for 2 drawn-out hours. Emma Corrin carries the 50 sequence, but it's still an overall unfocused story, lacking clear conflict or a protagonist. There's absolutely no energy to it. It's incredibly soapy, making it an entertaining mess, but overall just the blandest of the bland. I'm giving My Policeman a D. And yes, I just now realized how ironic that is in the context of this film, but those are my thoughts on My Policeman. Let me know what you make of it in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me in my LFF 2022 review. There's more reviews to come, so I hope to see you there. Thanks to my channel members for always supporting the channel, and so until the next one, love each other and love the movies.